What's up guys, Asian here with a build video, and today we're going to be going over the stamina DPS. Unlike my other build videos, this is going to kind of cover pretty much every single stamina DPS in the game. So this is a build specific for people who are just starting to get into DPS. This particular build uses pretty much very easily obtainable sets. So they're either all crafted sets or you can purchase them off of the guild trader. So this is really designed for the people who haven't yet managed to farm out their monster helms, for example Veladreths or Selines or Crags or whatever, and haven't been able to run enough trials to get their Vicious Ophidian set or any dungeons for their penetration set like Sunderflame or anything like that. So this is very kind of bare bones, very basic build that should be easily obtainable either through your own crafting or asking someone to craft a set for you, or you can buy them off of guild traders. So this particular setup will work for every single stamina spec, every single class there is, as long as you're stamina, of course. So I won't be doing one for each class. If you want to see an example of a rotation, go check out the specific class, because the rotation and skills that I use actually isn't going to change between this sort of beginner build and the more advanced build. The kind of meta build. The rotation is pretty much going to stay the same. The skills are going to stay exactly the same. The rotation is going to remain the same. The only thing that's changing here is going to be gear. So this gear is just a lot easier to obtain. So here we go. So the first thing we're going to do is go over the sets themselves. So there is going to be some variability here. You do have some options, so I'll go over each of the options here, but this is what, in my opinion, the easiest combination of sets to obtain. So first set we're going to be going with is Night Mother's Gaze. This is a crafted set. It is a 6-trait set, so you can find it in the last zone for each alliance. So that would be Reaper's March if you're an Altmerian Dominion. I believe it is the Rift for Ebonheart Pact, and Bankurai for Daggerfall Covenant. So that's where you can find the crafting station for Night Mother's Gaze. If you don't have the traits required in order to research or create Night Mother's Gaze, you can always ask somebody in one of your guilds. If you are in a big trading guild, most crafters will be more than willing to craft you the set themselves. Most will ask for just materials. Some people might ask for a small crafter's fee, usually like 1 or 2k per piece, but usually just having the materials themselves is enough payment for most crafters. For example, whenever somebody asks me to craft stuff, I just ask for, what sort of style do you want it, if I know the style or not, and do you have the materials for it. So if you want to get it upgraded like here to gold, then you would have to provide me with all the tempering materials up into the quality that you want. So while it is seems a little daunting to have 6 traits researched in 5 body pieces, you can still ask somebody to craft it for you as long as you provide materials. Most people will be willing to do it. We're going with all stamina enchants on our armor pieces, just because we're going to be using blue food, so you will be able to meet that 17k health threshold for vet trials and vet content in general. So we're sticking with Night Mother's Gaze as our constant 5-piece set because of the penetration that it gives you. It gives you 2580 physical resistance debuff on the enemy whenever you deal critical damage. So this is going to help you out if you're soloing or if you're in 4-man content. It just helps your penetration out a little bit more. You don't have to necessarily farm for Twice Fanged Snake from Sanctum Ophidia. So it's a very easy, it's not the largest debuff in the game, it's not the largest debuff set, but it is a very easily obtained debuff set to get. So that's why we're using that Mother's Gaze here. For our second set, we're going with Hunding's Rage. Hunding's Rage is another 6-trait crafted set, so you can ask anybody, again, if you don't know it, to craft it for you. It's found in the exact same zones as Night Mother's Gaze, so that'd be Reaper's March, the Rift, and Bankurai. So we're sticking with Hunding's Rage as our, 4-piece set, just because we want to maintain that penetration from Night Mother's Gaze, and Hunding's probably gives us the best 2, 3, and 4-piece bonuses for any sort of stamina set right now that is craftable in the game. So we're going with helm, and I am using a heavy shoulder with a health enchant. That's just to give you a little bit more survivability. You can easily replace this with a medium shoulder with a health enchant if you prefer the additional bonuses from the medium armor line. But for people who are just starting to get into vent content, I would recommend having a little bit more health to give you a little bit more survivability, especially as a stamina toon because you don't have access to shields. Even though Deadly Cloak was buffed, it's still a little bit harder to keep yourself alive as a stamina toon, especially if you're just starting to learn mechanics, things like that. So I do highly recommend sticking with at least one heavy piece, preferably with a health enchant on a small piece. For our jewelry, I am on the PTS, so this is why my agility jewelry is gold, but normally on live, your agility jewelry will be either purple or blue. Agility set is a set that you can get whenever you do your first random normal on any character. You get what's a mail from the Undaunted Enclave, and you have a chance of getting agility, willpower, and endurance set. So those are three item sets, so for the full bonus you can only need 3 items instead of the standard 5, and they can come in jewelry and weapons. And they are tradable, and that's the best part about agility and willpower and endurance. They are all tradable sets. So the jewelry is actually fairly cheap off of guild traders. If you go to Mournhold and you go to any of the guild traders, you can typically find purple ring of agility and purple necklace of agility for around 2 or 3k each, so you're looking at maybe 9k to probably 10k, 12k tops to buy this jewelry. And agility is a very powerful set. Because it is a 3 out of 3 item set instead of a 5 item set, the bonuses are a little bit stronger compared to your standard 5 item set. So you can see here we have 1451 max stam and 193 weapon damage compared to 129 weapon damage and 1096 stamina, which is the default for 5-piece set. So you can see we do get a nice boost. And agility does perform very admirably. It actually pulls neck and neck with Minor Slayer sets up until a certain DPS point, because Minor Slayer does scale additively. So the lower your DPS, the stronger agility is compared to Minor Slayer sets like Vicious Ophidian. But the best part about agility is, of course, like I said, it's tradable, so you can purchase it off of any guild trader. And if you want, and you're still leveling, you can even do your random normals once a day. Your first random normal will always have a chance of giving you agility rings. Make sure to get the robust rings, not the jewelry, unlike standard set jewelry, which can only drop in healthy, robust, or arcane, depending on if it's heavy, medium, or light, respectively. Agility, willpower, and endurance jewelry can come in any 3 of those traits. So there's healthy ring of agilities, there's robust rings of agilities, and arcane rings of agilities. So make sure you're grabbing the robust rings of agility because you want that extra stamina boost for that additional DPS. If you are a little bit concerned about your survivability, then yeah, you can pick up a healthy agility piece, but I wouldn't recommend picking up more than 1. You definitely want to try to get as much stamina as you can to get some additional, that little extra bit of DPS. For our weapons, we are going with Hunding's Rage. For our weapons, we're going with an Infused on the axe on the main hand, and we're going with a Precise Dagger on the offhand. So you can replace the axe with the dagger. You can go double dagger if you'd like. I kind of covered this already with the axe dagger versus double dagger video, but basically what it is the axe will have a better single target DPS, and daggers will give you slightly better AoE DPS. So you kind of pick and choose whichever one you like. It also kind of depends on aesthetics too. If you like axes better, then you can go with axe instead. So we are going with Infused Precise instead of the typical Nirn Infused, mainly because Nirn honed weapons is a bit expensive. Right now, I think on PCNA they're about 12k, 13k in order to purchase any Nirn weapon for research. And so the potent Nirn Crux, which is the trait material, goes for about 11k. So it is a little bit expensive to purchase it. But if you do have the gold to purchase potent Nirn Crux, and you want to go with Nirn Infused, and by all means you can go with Nirn Infused. It's just that Infused Precise is a little bit more attainable for your average player instead. So we're still going with a poison damage enchant on the main hand and a weapon damage enchant on the offhand. That's just the best combination of of enchants right now. So that's going to be your front bar. You can play around with your traits a little bit here. For example, you could go precise infused if you'd like, but infused main hand, precise offhand is, from my testing, second in terms of the combination of traits. Precise main hand and infused offhand does come close. I think it's only about 200 or so DPS, so about like 1%, maybe even 0.5% behind the reverse traits, so you can go with that if you'd like. That's kind of up to you how you want to play with it. And for the bow, we're still going with Hunding's Rage again. We're going with an infused bow, but you can go with precise or Nirn honed. Again, the infused is going to be easier to infused and precise are easier to obtain compared to Nirn honed, so that's why we're using an infused. And so kind of have two options here in terms of enchants or poison. So you could go with the double ravage health poison. These are made with flesh fly larva, nightshade, and Nirn root, three fairly cheap ingredients off of guild traders. So you can make those poisons and use them if you'd like, or you can buy them off of guild traders and use them. But if you don't feel like using poisons, either because you don't have the alchemy level to to create them, or you don't want to spend the gold constantly to buy more and more poisons, you can go with a disease damage enchant instead. I have covered whether disease damage enchant is better compared to how it stacks up against double ravage health poisons, and it does very well. So if you're going with the disease damage enchant, stick with infused. If you are going with poisons though, I'd recommend going with precise instead, because the infused isn't going to help you if you are using poisons. So that's kind of it for the bow. Now you do have some alternative sets here to use. Obviously, anything, we're going to be sticking just with sort of crafted or purchasable sets, so sets you can buy off of the guild traders. So another set that you could use for penetration to replace Night Mothers is going to be Spriggan's. Spriggan's is a medium armor set that comes from Bang Korai. It has, I think it's 2 pieces of max stam, 1 thing of weapon crit, and the 5-piece increases your physical penetration by, I believe it's 3580, or around that much, about 3.5k. So that is a tradable set, so you are able to purchase it off of guild traders. It can be fairly pricey to find them, especially in divines, so that's kind of why we're sticking with Night Mothers for this build, but you can replace Night Mothers with Spriggan's if you would like. If you do want to go with a stronger debuff set, you could go with Sunderflame instead. Sunderflame is another decent set. It is the medium armor set from City of Ash. You can do City of Ash 1 or 2. Because you are going with armor pieces, you can do City of Ash 1 on normal. It's a very quick, very easy dungeon to do, so you can just farm City of Ash 1 on normal for your Sunderflame armor pieces. And in addition, Sunderflame is a very good set to use even past just starting vet trials. It's your staple stamina debuff set for endgame content, so I would recommend, even if you are going to be using Night Mother's Gaze in the end, I would recommend trying to farm a set of Sunderflame just to give your group a little bit more flexibility when it comes to what set that you're eventually going to wear. So for replacing Hundings, there isn't really many other sets that you could use to replace Hundings with. You could go with Shacklebreaker. Shacklebreaker isn't a terrible set to use, but Hundings is probably going to be easier to obtain, just because it's in the base game. There aren't really many other stamina sets out there that have crit, stam, and crit as their 2, 3, 4-piece bonuses. A lot of the other stamina sets kind of have something like stamina regen, and like weapon damage or weapon crit, which isn't terrible, but if you want to push out the most DPS that you can, you're going to want to stick with Hundings, because stamina regen, because a lot of stamina DPS are sticking with heavy attack builds, you don't really need that much regen comparatively to, like, let's say a Magicka DPS. So Hundings is going to be better overall for better DPS, but really any of the crafted stamina sets are going to be pretty decent replacements for Hunding's Rage if you can't find somebody to craft Hunding's Rage, or if you want to craft it yourself but don't have 6 traits researched on the appropriate pieces. So for jewelry, you don't have to go with agility. You can go with very cheap jewels as long as they are robust and part of a medium armor set. So for example, the Defiler set from From Vardenfell, you can typically pick up the jewelry there for less than 2,000 gold. So if you don't have the gold to afford purple agility, you could just go with something like 3-piece Defiler jewelry instead. That's perfectly fine for you to do. You could do that. One thing that I would recommend doing with that is if you are gonna go with something like a different 5-piece set, basically like Defilers like I recommended, I would actually probably say pick up the full 5-piece set, so jewelry and then 2 body pieces. And then instead of weapons, you can use Shacklebreaker weapons instead. Shacklebreaker is another crafted set, and it does give weapon damage as the 2-piece effect, so that'll give you a little bit more DPS overall, or about the same DPS as this setup right here, but you will need to spend more gold overall if you are going to go with 2 5-piece sets. So I would probably say something like stick with Night Mother's Gaze and then pick up something like Defilers. You're going to end up losing a little bit of DPS just because Defilers isn't that great of a stamina set, but it is an option. It's very cheap to obtain, so I would probably go Defiler Jewelry and then Defiler Head and Shoulders. If you're going to do that, try to craft a heavy Night Mother's Gaze piece to maintain your 6 medium, 1 heavy piece, but you don't have to. You can go with all medium if you'd like. And then for weapons, just go with Shacklebreaker. You're going to have to ask somebody to craft it. It is in Vardenfell, and I believe it is a 6-trait set, so you do need access to Morrowind if you want to craft it yourself, the Morrowind expansion, or you can ask somebody in your guild to craft it for you. So that's pretty much it. And again, this particular setup works for all stamina DPS classes. There really isn't that much variability when it comes to stamina DPS in terms of sets. So this is something that I would recommend you use until you're able to farm up your meta sets, specifically Vicious Ophidian and Veladreths. Those are typically the 2 armor sets that most stamina DPS are constantly farming for. So if you want to look at the rotations, if you want to know what skills to use, check out the other stamina specific, class specific videos that I already have on the builds channel. I'll link them all down in the description below for you guys, so specifically at the part where I go over the skills and rotation and things like that, because like I said, that's not going to change between kind of beginner starting vet content and the endgame player. It's just a matter of gear in terms of differences here. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys found it informative, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.